What if I told you that you could be harvesting fresh vegetables from your garden in just 2 weeks from now? Not 2 months, not 2 seasons, 2 weeks. And here's the crazy part, most gardeners have no idea these crops even exist. So they're literally leaving money and fresh produce on the table. Stay with me because today, I'm showing you the 10 fastest growing crops that will transform your garden into a productivity machine. And some of these will absolutely shock you. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Earthly Gardening. If you're new here, we're all about helping you grow an abundant garden without spending a fortune. My name is Your Name, and honestly, when I first discovered these rapid growth crops, I literally went back and replanted my entire garden strategy. The results were incredible. So whether you're watching this because you've got empty garden beds sitting around, or you're just tired of waiting months for your harvest, this video is going to change how you think about gardening from this point forward. We're keeping this practical, we're keeping it real, and we're keeping it budget-friendly because that's what earthly gardening is all about. Before we jump into these crops, I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're finding value in what we're doing here, smash that like button. It only takes half a second, but it tells YouTube that people actually care about content like this, which means more gardeners like you get to see these tips. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button right now because we're dropping new budget-friendly gardening strategies every single week. Alright, let's dig in. Now, before we get to the specific crops, I want to explain why these 10 are so different from what you've probably tried before. See, most gardeners think about growing tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers because that's what they've always heard about. Nothing wrong with that, but here's what nobody talks about. There are these underground heroes, these crops that grow so fast they practically jump out of the soil. And the best part? They're not difficult. They're not expensive to start. And they actually perform better in challenging conditions than those traditional crops everyone obsesses over. Crop 1: radishes. Let's start with something that's going to blow your mind. Radishes. I know what you're thinking. Radishes? Really? But here's the thing about radishes that nobody highlights. They're ready to harvest in literally 20 to 30 days. 20 days. That's faster than it takes to get a pizza delivered if the place is busy. You plant the seed today, and in 3 weeks you've got crispy, fresh radishes sitting on your cutting board. They need minimal space, maybe 6 inches between each plant. They love partial shade, which most gardeners have in excess, and they actually improve your soil for the next crop. Plant radishes in the morning, and by evening you're already thinking about your next harvest. The budget part? A packet of radish seeds costs about $2 and gives you enough for a full row. Crop 2: microgreens. Now, this one is where things get interesting. Microgreens aren't just fast-growing, they're borderline miraculous. We're talking about having harvestable greens in 7 to 10 days. Not weeks, days. And here's what makes them different from regular greens. You're not growing these in soil like a traditional gardener would. You're growing them in anything. Soil, coconut coir, even recycled newspaper works. You can literally start microgreens in a jar, on a windowsill, in a basement with a lamp. No fancy equipment needed. The nutrition density in microgreens is insane too. We're talking about 3 to 5 times more nutrients than the mature plant. So you're growing something incredibly healthy in the smallest footprint possible. A single tray produces enough microgreens for multiple salads, and you can do it for pennies. Crop 3: lettuce and leafy greens. Lettuce is the dependable friend that shows up on time and never disappoints. You've got to harvest ready lettuce in 30 to 45 days, and here's the beautiful part about lettuce that most people miss. You don't have to wait for the whole plant to mature. You can do what's called cut and come again harvesting. That means you pick the outer leaves, leave the center alone, and the plant keeps growing. One plant could give you 3 or 4 harvests instead of just one. That's not just fast growth, that's efficient growth. Lettuce is practically forgiving too. It grows in shade, it doesn't need rich soil, it tolerates cooler temperatures, and it rarely gets pest problems. If you've had bad luck with gardening before, lettuce is going to restore your confidence. Crop 4: spinach. Spinach is similar to lettuce but different enough that it deserves its own moment. 40 to 50 days and you've got harvest-ready spinach. But here's what separates spinach from lettuce. Spinach thrives when most things are struggling. Spring and fall when temperatures are unpredictable. Spinach handles it like a champ. It actually prefers cooler weather, which means you can grow it in shoulder seasons when your tomato and pepper plants are sitting there doing absolutely nothing. Spinach is also one of those crops that keeps on producing. Cut the outer leaves, keep the center, and you've got continuing harvests for months. The nutritional value is obviously incredible, but what gets me excited is that you can practically give this crop to someone who's never gardened before and they'll succeed. It's that forgiving. Crop 5. Spring onions. Spring onions, also called scallions, are one of the most underrated fast-growing crops in gardening. 30 to 40 days and you've got usable scallions. Here's the mind-bending part though. Most people buy a bunch of spring onions from the grocery store, use the green tops, and throw away the white root section. Stop doing that. Put those root sections in soil, they regrow. It's basically infinite free spring onions if you know this trick. But even starting from seed, spring onions are ridiculously easy. They need minimal space, maybe an inch apart, and they actually improve soil health. They're also one of the crops that bugs leave alone for the most part, so you're not dealing with pest management headaches. Plus, spring onions are expensive at the grocery store, and homegrown ones taste so much better it's almost unfair. Crop 6. Arugula. Arugula is that trendy salad green that costs way too much at farmers markets, but when you grow it yourself it costs virtually nothing. Here's why I love arugula beyond just the speed. It grows in 30 days, yes, but it also grows in situations where other crops quit. Arugula tolerates heat better than lettuce, it handles cold better than basil, and it actually tastes better when it's growing fast because the leaves stay tender. The flavor is peppery and fresh, and one plant produces an absolutely ridiculous amount of edible leaf. You can even eat the seed pods before they fully mature, and they have this delicious peppery crunch that most people never experience. Arugula is also notorious for being a gateway crop because people grow it once, taste how incredible it is fresh, and suddenly they're inspired to grow more vegetables. It genuinely changes people's perspective on fresh produce. Crop 7. Beets. Beets are the underdog story of fast-growing crops. 50 to 70 days and you've got mature beets, but here's what makes them unique. Unlike most of these other crops, you're getting 2 harvests from one plant. The actual root vegetable underground, obviously, but the beet greens above ground are equally incredible and harvestable sooner. You're basically getting 2 separate crops from the same plant. The roots store amazingly well, so you can plant one batch, harvest another batch, and keep a continuous supply going through your kitchen. Beets handle poor soil better than almost anything else. They improve the soil for future plantings, and they store for weeks without any special equipment. Plus, growing beets is incredibly satisfying because watching those purple or red globes develop underground is genuinely exciting. Crop 8. Peas. Peas are the forgotten vegetable that deserves way more attention. 50 to 60 days for snap peas and snow peas that are absolutely fresh off the vine. Here's what gets people excited about peas. The moment they taste a fresh pea straight from the garden, that person is ruined for store-bought peas forever. The difference is honestly night and day. Peas also grow vertically, which means you can maximize space in a small garden by training them up a trellis or fence. They're not demanding about soil, they actually improve nitrogen in the soil for whatever you plant next. And kids specifically love growing peas because they're fun to harvest and eat right off the vine. Peas are also one of the crops that prefers cooler weather, so if you've been thinking your garden is dormant in spring or fall, peas are your answer. Crop 9. Bush beans. Bush beans are going to surprise you because they're technically fast-growing, but they also produce prolifically over a longer period. You get your first harvest around 50 to 60 days, but here's the thing about bush beans. They keep producing. You pick beans, more beans form, you pick those, more keep coming. It's like the plant respects effort. One small bush bean plant can produce dozens of pounds of beans across a season. They barely need fertilizer because they capture nitrogen from the air and put it in the soil. They handle drought better than most vegetables, and they're one of those crops that actually improve your garden health over time. Plus, the taste of a fresh garden bean is so different from store-bought that it's hard to believe they're the same vegetable. Kids love them too because they're straightforward to harvest. Crop 10. Kale. We're finishing with kale because it's the marathon runner of fast-growing crops. You can start harvesting outer leaves in 30 to 40 days, but unlike most of these other crops, kale is also incredibly cold hardy. This means you can plant it in summer for fall and winter harvests. You get a fast initial harvest. But the real value is that kale produces for months. We're talking about harvesting the same kale plant for 3 to 4 months straight. It gets sweeter after the first frost. It handles neglect better than most crops. And nutritionally, it's absolutely loaded. Kale also handles poor soil conditions that would make other crops fail. And if you've never experienced homegrown kale, you haven't actually experienced kale. The depth of flavor in fresh garden kale is something grocery store kale just can't match. Alright, so you've got 10 crops that can completely change your garden productivity. But here's what I want from you right now. Scroll down to the comments section and tell me which one of these crops you're most excited to try first. Seriously, drop it in the comments. You know what's wild? When people comment, YouTube literally shows this video to more people, which means more gardeners get to discover these fast-growing crops. It helps the channel grow, but more importantly, it helps people like you find content that actually matters. If you're sitting here thinking, this was actually helpful, but you haven't liked the video yet, now's the time. Like, comment, subscribe. It genuinely matters. One quick bonus before you go. The absolute fastest way to see results with these crops is to stagger your plantings. Don't plant all 10 crops on the same day. Plant radishes and microgreens this week. Plant lettuce and spinach next week. Plant spring onions the week after. This way, you've got continuous harvests coming in week after week instead of everything being ready at the same time and overwhelming you. It's called succession planting, and it's literally the secret that experienced gardeners use to keep their tables stocked with fresh produce year-round. That's what we've got for you today on Earthly Gardening. If you found this helpful, which I genuinely believe you will, come back next week because we're talking about the cheapest ways to build raised beds that actually last for years. You don't want to miss that one. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Now go plant something.